The first time Brenda threatened to call the police, my 8-year-old daughter, Maya, was drawing a hopscotch board. The weapon in question? A piece of stubby, bright pink sidewalk chalk. I was sitting on the porch, nursing a lukewarm coffee, trying to enjoy the 10 minutes of suburban silence that Saturday morning affords. The sun was out. A bird was chirping. My 6-year-old son, Leo, was coloring in one of Maya's squares with a vibrant blue. It was aggressively idyllic. Then the shadow fell. It wasn't a cloud. It was Brenda. Brenda, who our cul-de-sac just called Brenda in that very specific tone, marched across her unnaturally green lawn, a lawn that looked less like bog grass and more like a hostile, synthetic carpet. She moved with the rigid, indignant posture of someone who regularly demands to speak to the manager of the entire planet. "Mike," she said. No hello, no good morning, just Mike. "Brenda," I replied, giving her a little 2-finger wave from my coffee mug. "What's up?" She pointed a trembling, manicured finger at the concrete. "This." I looked at the hopscotch board. I looked at Leo, who was now drawing what appeared to be a blue potato with legs. I looked back at her. "It's chalk, Brenda. Pretty sure it's non-toxic." "It's a visual nuisance," she snapped. Her voice was a low-grade drill. "We have standards in this neighborhood. This isn't a skate park." "Right. It's a driveway, where kids play." I was trying, really trying, to be the reasonable one. My wife, Sarah, always tells me to be the reasonable one. "It'll wash off, Brenda. The rain is scheduled for 3 p.m. I think the visual nuisance will resolve itself." This, apparently, was the wrong thing to say. "The aesthetics, Mike," she said, her voice rising. "People drive through here. What are they supposed to think when they see this graffiti? I think they're supposed to think, oh, kids live there, how nice, as opposed to your house where they think, oh, a high-strung woman with a vendetta against Joy lives there. But, you know, to each his own." That last part might have stayed in my head. I'm not sure. Judging by the way her eyes narrowed, maybe it didn't. "I'm on the HOA board, Mike. I'm sure you're aware." Oh, we were aware. She sent out a monthly newsletter detailing infractions. Trash receptacles visible from street view, 7:15 a.m., 12 Elm Street. Violation. Unapproved mailbox flag, 4 Pine. Violation. She was the self-appointed guardian of our collective beigeness, and the bylaws are very clear about public nuisances and unapproved surface alterations. "Brenda, it's chalk. It's powdered rock. My daughter is committing a surface alteration with a rock. If you don't handle it, I will be forced to report it," she said. "And I will be calling the police to report the vandalism. Think about that." She turned, her beige slacked backside rigid with purpose, and marched back to her beige house, disappearing behind her beige door. My kids, of course, had stopped playing. They were staring at me, chalk still in hand, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear. "Is that lady mad at us, Daddy?" Maya asked, her voice small. "That lady," I said, getting up from my chair, "is mad at the concept of happiness, sweetie. Don't worry about it." But I was worried. Not about the police. That was absurd, even for her. But about the HOA. The all-powerful, all-seeing HOA. A hydra of petty tyrants led by Brenda. "Did you have to hose it down?" Sarah asked later that afternoon, after I'd relayed the story. The driveway was a blank, damp gray. The kids were inside, watching a cartoon about suspiciously happy animals. "I didn't have to," I sighed, rinsing my mug. But it was either that or listen to her screech for an hour, and then get a warning letter in the mail, and then you'd be stressed, and it was just easier. It's stupid. It is stupid, Sarah agreed, leaning against the counter. But let's just, I don't know, let them play in the backyard for a few days? Let her cool off? Yeah, okay. But as I looked out the window at the spotless, boring, Brenda-approved driveway, I felt a simmering, childish resentment. It was the same feeling I got in 4th grade when the teacher took away my comic book. It was an injustice, a small, stupid, chalk-based injustice. And I really don't handle small, stupid injustices well. We tried the backyard. The kids tolerated it for about 48 hours. But the backyard was for the swing set and the sandbox. The driveway, with its wide, flat, glorious expanse of concrete, was for art. A few days later, a Wednesday, I was working from home. I saw Maya and Leo sneak out with the chalk bucket. I didn't stop them. Sarah was at the grocery store. It was my jurisdiction. "Go nuts," I said, giving them a thumbs up through the office window. "Just try to keep the visual nuisance to a minimum." They didn't. They went full-on abstract expressionist. When I came out at 5 p.m., the driveway was a masterpiece. It was a lopsided, bright green dragon, breathing orange fire at a purple castle. Leo had contributed several hundred blue potatoes, which I think were supposed to be the dragon's eggs. It was beautiful. It was still there when Brenda got home from work. I didn't see her, but I heard her car door slam with a force that seemed structurally unnecessary. The next day, it wasn't a knock at the door. It was a sound from the mailbox, a metallic clack, and the sight of the postman's little white truck driving away. It was a certified letter. You know the kind. Green and white. Demands a signature. It's the type of mail that never contains good news. It's never, "Congratulations, you've won the lottery." It's always, "You're being audited," or "Your great-aunt Mildred's parrot is now your legal dependent." I signed for it. I opened it. It was from the Crestview Commons Homeowners Association, Architectural Review Committee. A committee that, I knew for a fact, was comprised of Brenda, Brenda's friend Gerald from down the street, and Brenda's reflection in a hand mirror. It was a formal cease and desist. Subject: violation notice. Public nuisance and graffiti. Section 4 on B. Dear Mr. Michael, Mike Johnson, it has come to our attention that your property at 8 Willow Creek is in violation of the Crestview Commons Covenant, bylaws, and restrictions. Specifically, Section 4.B, Public Nuisances, and Section 7.G, Unapproved Markings. On 2 separate occasions, your driveway has been defaced with drawings, constituting a visual nuisance and unsanctioned graffiti. This is a formal warning. Please cease and desist this activity immediately. A failure to comply will result in a fine of $100 for the first offense. Subsequent offenses will escalate to $500, and may result in a lien being placed on your property. A lien for chalk. I read it twice. I read it a third time just to savor the sheer, unadulterated audacity. Unsanctioned graffiti. Defaced. They were talking about my kid's dragon. That night, after the kids were in bed, I showed Sarah. Her face did that little tight thing it does when she's calculating future expenses. "Aline? Mike, this is insane. Okay, no more chalk. It's not worth it." "It's not about the chalk anymore, Sarah," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "It's the principal. The principal is going to cost us $500. I don't want a principal. I want to not be sued by the psycho next door." "She can't sue us if we're not breaking the rules," I said. "But we are," Sarah countered. "She just said so. Section 4B. Section 4B, I mused. You know what? I've never actually read the covenant. "Mike, don't." She knew my plotting face. "Don't. I'm just going to read it, that's all. A little light reading." So at 10 p.m., I poured a glass of bourbon. I retrieved the Crestview Commons covenant from the junk drawer in the kitchen. All 200 spiral-bound pages of it. A document that had all the riveting charm of a toaster's instruction manual. I sat at the dining room table with the bourbon, a yellow highlighter, and a heart full of petty rage. I started reading. Oh, the things I learned. I learned that no fence could be taller than 6 feet, but no shorter than 5'11". I learned that all mailboxes must be colonial cream or patriotic white. Ours was patriotic white, thank God. I learned that basketball hoops were permissible, but the net must be white, and the pole must be black. I learned that holiday decorations could not be erected more than 30 days before the holiday in question, with the exception of Arbor Day. I was in a bureaucratic hell of Brenda's making. I flipped to Section 4 on B. Public nuisances. It was, as I suspected, vague. It listed loud noises, noxious odors, unsightly objects, and any activity which unreasonably infringes upon the peaceful enjoyment of other residents. It was subjective. It was her word against mine. I flipped to Section 7G. Unapproved markings. It was all about spray paint, graffiti, carving into trees, nothing about chalk, not a single word. I was getting frustrated. I was 150 pages in, and my bourbon was low. She was citing rules that didn't apply. She was winning on vagueness. And then I found it. It wasn't in nuisances, it was in architectural and landscaping, tucked away between roof shingle composition and shrubbery height, Section 8.C, driveway and walkway surfaces. My heart sped up. I grabbed the highlighter. All driveways and walkways must be maintained in good repair, free of cracks, weeds, and significant staining. Surfaces may be sealed or painted. Approved paint colors are limited to neutral earth tone shades. A list of approved colors, see Appendix D, includes sandstone, adobe, slate gray, and charcoal black. I read the line again. Charcoal black. I put the covenant down. I picked up my phone. I opened a web browser. I typed in industrial chalkboard paint. The search results flooded in. Premium, industrial grade, high traffic, durable. The primary, and often only, color available. Charcoal black. I looked at the covenant. Charcoal black. I looked at my phone. Charcoal black. A slow, beautiful, terrible smile spread across my face. It was the kind of smile a cartoon villain gets right before he unveils his giant, world-ending laser. I walked into the living room, where Sarah was half watching a home renovation show. "Honey," I said, my voice brimming with manufactured innocence. "I've been thinking. Our driveway is looking a little faded. Lots of significant staining. Sarah looked up, her eyes immediately suspicious. Mike, what are you plotting? You have your plotting face on. I'm not plotting, I said, holding up the covenant. I'm just thinking about home improvement, as per the HOA guidelines, specifically Section 8.c. The next morning, I took the day off. I told my boss it was a home emergency. It wasn't not an emergency. I sat at my desk with a fresh cup of coffee and the phone book. Just kidding. I sat with Google. My search query, commercial painters near me. My first call was to a company called Perfect Paving. Perfect Paving, this is Gary, a gruff voice answered. Hi, Gary. My name is Mike. I've got a slightly unusual request. I want to get my driveway painted. Painted? We usually do sealant, kid. Or epoxy. You don't paint a driveway. Well, I want to. It's a standard 2-car driveway, maybe 900 square feet. I want it painted with chalkboard paint. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end. Chalkboard paint. That's right, the industrial-grade stuff. Sir, is this a prank call? You want to, do math problems on your driveway? I just want to know if you can do it, Gary. Acid wash it, prep it, prime it, and paint it. 3 coats. Premium. Kid, I've been paving for 30 years. That's the stupidest damn thing I've ever heard. It'll peel, it'll bubble. It'll look like hell in a month. I'm not putting my company's name on that. You want an epoxy stone finish? I can give you a deal. No thanks, Gary. I hung up. My second call was to Prestige Coatings and Finishes. This one sounded more promising. A very professional-sounding woman named Jessica answered. Prestige Coatings, how can I help you? I gave her the same speech. 900 square feet. Chalkboard paint. Oh, chalkboard paint, she said, her voice full of a synthetic, sales-driven cheer. That's a gimmick. You don't want that. It's for kids' playrooms. It will not hold up to vehicle traffic. Now, what I can offer you is our beautiful Tuscan Sun epoxy finish. It gives you that lovely mottled stone look, and we can do it in a sandstone or adobe that I'm sure your HOA would love. How did you know I was in an HOA? Honey, she said, her voice dropping the cheerfulness. Nobody asks for adobe unless an HOA is involved. Look, the chalkboard thing is a bad idea. Let me send a guy out. He'll show you the epoxy samples. I'm really set on the chalkboard paint, I said. Well, we won't warranty it, and it'll be a custom job, so you're looking at… Oof, it's going to be expensive. Plus the prep, I'll pass. I hung up again. I was getting discouraged. I tried one more. Sal's Custom Paint and Power Washing. It had 3.5 stars on Yelp, which in the contractor world is basically a Michelin star. Yo, a voice answered. Not Sal's Custom, just yo. Hi, is this Sal? Yeah, who's this? My name is Mike. I have a driveway. I want it painted. Painted? Like with lines for basketball? No, I want the whole thing, the entire 900 square foot rectangle, painted with industrial-grade, charcoal black chalkboard paint. There was a long pause. I heard what sounded like a sandwich being chewed. Finally, Sal spoke, his voice low and conspiratorial. You in an HOA? You have no idea, Sal. I love it, he said, and I could hear the grin in his voice. Oh, I love it. They fining you for oil stains? Worse, my kid's chalk. They're fining you for chalk? Sal let out a bark of a laugh. That's a new one, and I've heard everything. I had a lady in Silver Lake. They tried to fine her because her wind chimes were melodically non-compliant. Melodic. Okay, Mike, I love this job. We can do it. You can? Hell yeah. But we gotta do it right. We can't just slap it on. We gotta pressure wash the hell out of it. Then an acid etch to make the concrete porous. Then a special concrete primer. Then 2, maybe 3 coats of the good stuff. The real industrial-grade liquid slate. I gotta add a non-slip additive too, or you'll break your neck when it rains. And a UV-resistant sealant on top to keep it from fading into just gray. Sal, you're an artist. I'm a guy who likes getting paid to stick it to the man, Mike. And the man, in this case, sounds like a real piece of work. It ain't gonna be cheap, but it's gonna be beautiful. When can you start? Friday. We'll prep Friday, paint Saturday. It'll need 72 hours to cure, so you can't park on it till Wednesday. Can you handle that? I can park on the street for a few days, I said, a giddy, lightheaded feeling washing over me. Sal, you're a lifesaver. Nah, I'm just a painter, Mike. See you Friday, 8 a.m. And hey, don't tell anyone what we're doing. Let it be a surprise. Friday morning, Sal's truck, a paint-splattered beast of a Ford F-250, rumbled into the cul-de-sac. He and his 2-man crew, who looked like they'd just stepped out of a Mad Max movie, started unloading. The first piece of equipment was a power washer that sounded like a 747 taking off. I was in my front window, coffee in hand. Right on cue, Brenda's curtains twitched. I saw her face, a pale, suspicious blob, peering through the blinds. The noise was glorious. It was a 4,000 PSI scream of progress. For 3 hours, Sal's crew blasted away every molecule of dirt, grime, and, yes, chalk dust from my driveway. Then came the acid etching. The smell was pungent. Brenda's front door opened. She came out in her "I'm just getting the mail" robe, even though the mail didn't come for another 4 hours. She squinted at Sal's truck. I chose that moment to walk outside. "Morning, Brenda," I yelled over the din of the machine. "What is all this?" she shrieked back. "Just some driveway maintenance," I said, all smiles. "The covenant says it has to be maintained in good repair, you know, free of weeds and stains. Just trying to be a good neighbor." She looked suspicious. She knew I was up to something, but she couldn't figure out what. She looked at the driveway, which was now a pristine, wet, light gray. She probably assumed I was just getting it sealed, a compliant act. "Well, it's very loud," she yelled. "Can't be helped. Heavy-duty work." I gave her a blindingly cheerful thumbs up. She huffed and retreated back into her beige fortress. Sal gave me a wink. Phase 1 complete. Tomorrow, we paint the town black. Saturday morning was bright and painfully clear. Sal and his team arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. They set up wet paint signs. They put down tarps. They had a giant 5-gallon drum of the primer and 3 more 5-gallon drums of the main event. I looked at the label. Krylon Industrial Liquid Slate. Color, charcoal black. It was perfect. I had my phone and my printout of the HOA covenant, Appendix D, in my pocket, just in case. Sal's crew worked fast. They rolled on the primer, a dull, flat gray. It was already a stark change. But then, Sal himself cracked the lid on the main drum. He dipped a massive industrial roller into the paint. It was black, not dark gray, not off black. It was the black of a Heiku, starless night. The black of a new computer monitor before you turn it on. It was a deep, matte, light-absorbing void. He put the roller to the concrete at the top of the driveway. He pulled it down. A thick, rich, perfect line of charcoal black appeared. "Oh yeah," Sal muttered, dipping the roller again. "This is the good stuff." They worked for an hour. With every roll, the driveway disappeared, replaced by this monolith, this rectangle of pure, unadulterated blackness. It was no longer a driveway. It was a driveway-shaped black hole, an art installation on the nature of nothingness. It was beautiful. And of course, it was then that Brenda emerged. She'd clearly been waiting. She stormed out of her house, phone already in hand, and marched onto my lawn. "What? What do you think you're doing?" she shrieked. The primer had been one thing, but this was a declaration of war. "Morning, Brenda," I said cheerfully, walking over. "We're just finishing up the maintenance." "That is black," she screamed, pointing. "That is not an approved color. That is not earth tone. I am fining you right now. I am calling the police." "Actually, Brenda," I said, pulling the paint can lid from the trash pile, "it's not black. It's charcoal black. See?" I held it up for her. And I pulled the folded, highlighted Appendix D from my back pocket. "It's right here. Approved color list. Right between slate gray and adobe, an approved, neutral, earth tone shade." She stared at the paper. She stared at the paint lid. Her brain seemed to be short-circuiting, trying to reconcile the letter of the law with the spirit of what she was seeing. That's not what they meant," she sputtered. "They meant for trim for shutters, not this. It's an abomination." "I don't know, Brenda. The rules just say driveway and walkway surfaces. Seems pretty clear to me. I'm just following the covenant. The very covenant you told me to read." You're doing this on purpose, to mock me." "I'm just protecting my investment, Brenda, maintaining my surface per the rules. Sal," I called over. "That's looking great. Really, neutral." Sal, bless his heart, just tipped his cap. "Sure is, boss. Really ties the whole cul-de-sac together." Brenda was vibrating. She was actually shaking with rage. "I'm calling the police. This is a hazard. It's going to attract heat. It's going to melt the tires on the mail truck. It's a public safety issue." "You do that, Brenda," I said, and went to sit on my porch. And she did. 20 minutes later, as Sal's crew was starting the second coat, a police cruiser pulled up. Not one, but 2 officers. One was older, with a mustache that had seen things, and a general air of, "I am 2 years from retirement." This was Officer Davis. The other was young, crisp, and looked like he was trying to grow the mustache. Officer Miller. They got out of the car, their expressions professionally neutral, but with a hint of, "Are you kidding me?" Officer Davis sighed, adjusting his belt. "Okay, folks, what's the problem here? We got a call about a malicious painting." Brenda marched over to them, phone in hand. "Officers, thank you for coming. This man," she pointed at me, "is creating a public hazard. He's painting his driveway black. It's a violation." I walked over, hands in my pockets, the picture of non-threatening suburban dad. "Morning, officers. My name is Mike Johnson. This is my house." Officer Davis looked at me. He looked at the driveway, which was now about 70% void. He looked at Sal, who was politely pretending to inspect a roller. He looked at Brenda. "Ma'am," Davis said, "what's the violation exactly?" It's black," Brenda insisted. "It's going to absorb all the sunlight. It'll be 150 degrees. Children will burn their feet. It's going to blind the pilots flying overhead. It's a nuisance." Officer Miller, the rookie, coughed into his hand. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. "Ma'am, Officer Davis said, his voice a gravel pit of patience. Is it his property? Well, yes, but is paint illegal? No, but the HOA… Ma'am, Davis said, holding up a hand. I'm going to stop you right there. The police do not enforce HOA bylaws. That is a civil matter. It is quite literally not our problem. But it's a hazard, she pleaded. I stepped in, holding my papers. Officer, if I may, I'm just painting my driveway. It's my property. Here is the HOA covenant, and here is the approved color list. As you can see, charcoal black is a pre-approved color. Here is the paint can. Here is the invoice from the contractor. I'm just maintaining my home. Officer Miller took the papers from me. He looked them over. He looked at the paint can. He looked at the driveway. He turned to his partner. He's right, Dave. It's charcoal black. It's on the list. Officer Davis just stared at me. He didn't smile, but the corners of his mustache twitched. He knew exactly what I was doing. He'd seen this war 1,000 times. Ma'am, Davis said to Brenda, handing the papers back to me. This man is painting his own driveway, with a color that, according to his own paperwork, is technically allowed. There is no crime here. There is no hazard that we can see. It's just paint. You're not going to do anything? Brenda was aghast. There's nothing to do. It's a dispute between you and him and your homeowners association. Please don't call 911 for paint-related disputes. It ties up the line for actual emergencies. But have a nice day, folks. Davis tipped his hat to me. Sir, that's a very black driveway. Thank you, officer, I said. I'm just trying to be compliant. They got back in their car. As they pulled away, I could see Officer Miller, the rookie, finally letting go and laughing, his shoulders shaking. Brenda was left on the curb, sputtering, her face a shade of red that was definitely not on the HOA-approved list. Sal walked over to me, wiping his hands on a rag. That was beautiful, man. Just beautiful. You got guts, Mike. Just following the rules, Sal, I said. Right, come on, boys, Sal yelled to his crew. Let's get this second coat down. We're burning daylight. The job was done by 2 p.m. Sal and his team packed up, leaving behind a few wet paint signs and the most beautiful, intimidating 900-square-foot rectangle of pure charcoal black you've ever seen. And now, we had to wait. 72 hours, Mike, Sal had warned me. No cars, no walking, no kids, no nothing. It's got a cure. You mess with it now, it'll peel, and she wins. He was right. The next 72 hours were the longest of my life. This section of the story wasn't action. It was suspense. It was the quiet part of the horror movie before the monster jumps out. The driveway was an event. At high noon, Brenda was right about one thing. It was hot. You could feel the heat radiating off it, but it didn't melt any tires. At dusk, it was even weirder. As the sun went down, the driveway just disappeared. It didn't reflect the twilight. It just became a patch of absolute darkness, a void on the front of my house. On the second day, my neighbor Chad from across the street, a perfectly harmless guy who was way too into craft IPAs, wandered over while I was getting the mail. Dude, he said, staring at the driveway. Wow. Hey, Chad, what's up? That is intense. Going for like a goth look? Is this a phase? Just sprucing things up, Chad, I said, leaning in. HOA approved. Charcoal black. Chad's eyes went wide. He knew about Brenda. Everyone knew about Brenda. Oh, dude, no. Did you… because of the chalk? I just gave him a slow, silent nod. His face broke into a massive grin. That is epic, man. My wife is gonna lose her mind. That's a power move. Respect. He gave me a fist bump and walked away, cackling. My wife, Sarah, was less impressed. She was nervous. Mike, it's so black, she said, staring out the kitchen window. It looks like we're summoning something. Are you sure this is going to work? Is what going to work? I asked, feigning innocence. The paint? Sal said it's top of the line. You know what I mean. The other part. What if the chalk just doesn't show up? Or what if it looks terrible? Or what if Brenda finds another rule? She won't, I said, though a tiny kernel of doubt had planted itself in my gut. What if it didn't work? What if I'd just permanently and expensively ruined our driveway to make a point that was ultimately pretty childish? I'd be the guy with the weird, ugly, useless driveway, and Brenda would have won. I pushed the thought down. It'll be fine. Trust the process. Meanwhile, Brenda was not idle. She was in full counterattack mode. On Monday, day 3 of the curing, I saw her, clipboard in hand, walking from house to house. She was canvassing, gathering signatures, pointing at my driveway with a look of profound victimhood. She was clearly gathering support for an emergency HOA meeting. She was building her army. She skipped my house, naturally. She also skipped Chad's. She's trying to get us, Mike, Sarah said, watching her from the living room. She's trying to get an emergency injunction to force us to repaint it. Let her, I said, feeling a strange calm. Let her have her meeting. By the time she gets it scheduled, the paint will be cured. And I, for one, am very excited to read my defense. I've been practicing. You're a menace. I'm a concerned homeowner, Sarah. Big difference. The 72-hour mark was Tuesday at 2 p.m. I watched the clock all day. At 2:01 p.m., I went outside. I stood at the edge of the driveway. I tapped it with my foot. It was hard as a rock. It was perfect. Phase 2 was complete. That Tuesday evening, I didn't go home from work. I went to an art supply warehouse. Not a craft store. Not a toy store. I went to the place where serious artists with serious ponytails buy serious supplies. I walked up to the counter, where a young woman with purple hair was reading a comic book. Excuse me, I said. I need chalk. Aisle 4, she said, not looking up. Pastels. No, I said, leaning in. I need chalk. I need all of it. I need the big, jumbo sidewalk grade stuff. But I want the good stuff. The hyper-pigmented, super-vivid artist-grade stuff. The stuff that stains. Now she looked up, intrigued. The stuff that stains? Give me the most obnoxious, vibrant colors you have. I want a pink that hurts the eyes. I want a blue that looks like a high-definition screen. I want a yellow that screams. A slow smile spread across her face. I think I know exactly what you need. I walked out of that store with a 5-gallon bucket filled with what looked like sticks of pure, crystallized light. It cost me a fortune. It was worth every penny. When I got home, I put the bucket in the garage, hidden from view. Saturday morning. Exactly 1 week after the certified letter. Exactly 2 weeks after the original hopscotch incident. The sun was out. It was a perfect 75 degrees. Brenda was, predictably, weeding her already weedless flower bed, giving my driveway the stink eye. Kids! I yelled into the house. Operation Dragon's Lair is a go! Maya and Leo came thundering out, Sarah behind them, holding her "World's Best Dad" mug, though the look on her face said "World's Most Insane Husband." I walked to the garage. I picked up the 5-gallon bucket. I walked to the center of the driveway. I dramatically upended the bucket. The chalk, at least 50 thick jumbo sticks in 50 different colors, clattered onto the deep black surface. The effect was instantaneous. The colors, against that charcoal black void, were dazzling. They didn't look like chalk. They looked like neon. They looked electric. The kids froze, their eyes as wide as dinner plates. What is it, Daddy?" Leo whispered, as if he were in a church. "It's a chalkboard," I said, my voice thick with theatricality. "But it's not a chalkboard. It's a charcoal black community art space. And it is officially open. Go, nuts!" For a second, they were too stunned. Then Maya, my brave little pioneer, picked up a stick of nebula pink. She knelt. She touched it to the surface. It left a mark so bright and so clean, it looked like a laser beam. "Whoa," she breathed. And then all hell broke loose. It wasn't just hopscotch. It wasn't just a lopsided dragon. It was an explosion. Maya started on a "Welcome to Narnia" portal, complete with a roaring Aslan. Leo, now armed with a palette that could match his ambition, began drawing a solar system. A full-scale solar system. His blue potatoes were now, correctly, blue-green Earths. Sarah actually laughed, a real surprised bark of a laugh. She put down her mug, picked up a piece of solar flare orange, and started helping Maya with the lion's mane. Within 20 minutes, kids from 3 streets over started to appear, drawn like moths to this impossible, vibrant flame. Chad's kids came running over. The Miller kids. The Patels. My driveway, the visual nuisance, had become the hottest spot in the neighborhood. It was a chalk art apocalypse. There were aliens. There were ninjas. There was a full-size dragon, no longer lopsided, fighting a Gundam. The colors on the deep black were so vivid they almost glowed. And then, Brenda came out to get her mail. She walked to her mailbox. She opened it. She pulled out her junk mail. She turned around. She saw it. She saw the driveway. She saw 15 kids, all laughing, all drawing, all collaborating on a piece of art that would put the Sistine Chapel to shame. She saw me, sitting on my porch, drinking my coffee, giving her a friendly little wave. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She didn't march. She just stopped. Her mouth opened. She made a small, high-pitched, strangled sound, like a dying seagull. Her junk mail slipped from her fingers and scattered on her perfect synthetic lawn. She backed away, slowly, as if she had just seen a demon. She fumbled for her door handle, her eyes never leaving the scene. She got inside, and the door clicked shut. I took a sip of my coffee. It was delicious. "Okay, kids," I called out. "One more thing. We need to thank the person who made all this possible." I grabbed the biggest piece of chalk I could find, a brilliant Arctic white. Right at the foot of the driveway, in giant, 8-foot-tall, beautiful bubble letters, Maya, Sarah, and I drew. "Thank you, Brenda." We even added flowers all around it. The email blast went out Sunday night. Subject: urgent. Emergency meeting of the Crestview Commons HOA. It was called for Tuesday night. The agenda: discussion and vote on an unprecedented architectural violation and public nuisance at 8 Willow Creek. That was me. I was unprecedented. I was pretty proud of that. As per my agreement with Sarah, I'd hosed the driveway down Sunday night. The kids were sad, but I promised them we'd start fresh next weekend. The beauty of it was that the water-based chalk came off the sealed surface instantly. A 5-minute spray, and the driveway was back to its ominous, pristine, charcoal black self. Clean, compliant, and waiting. Tuesday night, I put on a button-down shirt. Sarah came with me for moral support, which I think just meant she wanted to watch the fireworks from a safe distance. The community center rec room was packed. Apparently, unprecedented architectural violations were a bigger draw than the annual Beigescape Your Garden seminar. Brenda was at the podium, flanked by the 2 other board members, Gerald, a man who looked like a nervous turtle, and Barb, a woman who just looked tired. Brenda was not calm. She was visibly trembling, clutching a stack of papers. She had a full PowerPoint presentation. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice tight. "We are here tonight to discuss a grave threat to our community's property values and, frankly, our way of life." She clicked to the first slide. It was a picture of my driveway, in all its chalk art glory. "This spectacle is what Mr. Mike Johnson of 8 Willow Creek has subjected this neighborhood to." She clicked again. A blurry close-up of the "Thank you, Brenda." "It is a deliberate, malicious, and childish mockery of our bylaws," murmurs from the crowd, some indignant, some amused. "He has invited transients," she was talking about the neighbor's kids, "onto his property to create visual anarchy. He has created a public nuisance. And this—" She clicked to a photo of the pure black driveway, taken at noon. "This hazard. It is a violation of the spirit of our community. I am therefore tabling an emergency motion to find Mr. Johnson in violation, to fine him the maximum amount, and to force him, at his own expense, to immediately strip this abomination and return his driveway to a compliant concrete gray." She finished, breathless, and stared at the crowd, expecting applause. Instead, there was an awkward silence. "Mr. Johnson," Gerald the Turtle Man mumbled, "do you, have a response?" "I do, Gerald. Thank you." I stood up. I'd left my blazer at home, but I did bring my folder. I walked to the podium. Brenda glared at me as if I were about to set her on fire. "Hi, everyone," I said, addressing the crowd. "Mike Johnson, 8 Willow Creek. First, I just want to thank Brenda for her passion for our community." I opened my folder. "Brenda and members of the board, I'm a little confused. I've tried my best to be a good neighbor. When Brenda first brought her concerns to my attention, I looked to our guiding document, the Covenant." I held it up. "Let's break this down, shall we? First, the paint itself. Brenda calls it an abomination. The Covenant, in Section 8C, calls it charcoal black, which, as you can see from my attached receipt from the paint store and Appendix D of the bylaws, is a pre-approved neutral earth tone shade. The paint, I'm afraid, is 100% compliant." Brenda started to speak, but I held up a hand. "Second, the graffiti and visual anarchy you mentioned. I was very troubled by that, so I looked up the legal definition of graffiti. It is, and I quote, writing or drawings illicitly scribbled, scrawled, or sprayed on a surface in a public place. This is my private property, and more importantly, it's not illicit. I'm the owner. I gave my own kids permission." "But the nuisance," Brenda hissed. "Ah, yes, the nuisance, Section 4.b, a very subjective rule. But here's the thing about the chalk. It's temporary. As you all saw on Monday, the driveway is currently spotless. It's far less permanent than, say, Greg's pink flamingos, which I'm pretty sure aren't earth tone, or the oil stain on… well, never mind. Greg, in the back, sank lower in his chair. I am simply providing a safe, clean, creative, and temporary play space for my children. And as it turns in many of your children, I gestured to the crowd, on my fully compliant HOA-approved property. I closed my folder. I'm not in violation of any rule. I'm just a dad who read the bylaws. Thank you. I sat down. The silence was deafening. Then Chad's wife, from the back, spoke up. I'd just like to say, my kids loved it. It was the first time they've played outside, with other kids, in months. It was nice. The mother of the Patel kids nodded. My children, too. It was very beautiful. Brenda looked horrified. Her army was defecting. But the values, she stammered. Barb, the tired-looking board member, finally spoke. Brenda, she said, sighing. He's right. What? He's right. He followed the rules. The paint is on the list. The chalk is temporary. There's nothing we can do. There's no violation. She looked at Gerald. Gerald just sort of shrunk into his turtleneck. I agree with Barb. There's no violation. So, Barb said to the room, the motion to fine Mr. Johnson is denied. Brenda looked like she was going to be sick. Meeting adjourned, Barb said, banging the little gavel. The driveway is now a neighborhood legend. The charcoal black community art space is a permanent fixture of the cul-de-sac. We fell into a rhythm. The kids, and now half the neighborhood, create masterpieces all week. We have themes. Last week was Under the Sea. This week is Outer Space. On Sunday night, I hose it all down, a ritual of renewal, returning it to its pristine, charcoal black state, ready for a fresh start on Monday. The kids in the neighborhood now call our house the Chalk Yard. As for Brenda, she hasn't spoken a word to me. I'm out there on a Saturday afternoon. It's Outer Space Week. I'm helping Leo with the rings of Saturn, which are coming out pretty good. Sarah's on the porch, reading a book, drinking an iced tea. Brenda power walks by, her arms pumping, her eyes fixed on the other side of the street, pointedly ignoring the 10-foot-wide mural of the Milky Way galaxy she's passing. She's lost the war, and the thank you sign, which we redraw every week, is a constant, colorful reminder. Sarah gets up and brings me a glass of water. She looks at our work. You're a terrible person. You know that? She says, a smile playing on her lips. I know, I say, taking a sip. I stand back to admire the work. But you've got to admit that charcoal black really makes the nebula pink pop, doesn't it? Chad wanders over from his yard, beer in hand. Dude, that Saturn is sick. You guys got any of that, Comet White? I reach into the bucket and toss him a piece of chalk. He shrugs, kneels, and starts helping his daughter draw a rocket ship. Just make sure it's not a visual nuisance, Chad, I say. He just laughs. I pick up a piece of blue and go back to work. I'm just a dad, after all, just maintaining my property.